especially if you do a lot of scanning. Big difference. Okay? All right, so today we're going to talk about Helping a Hero. This is an organization, 501c3 charity that was founded in 2006 by myself and 2 other gentlemen here in the Bay Area. In 2008, we merged with a group from the Rotary Club of Houston who funded us a significant amount of money that really kind of kick-started the entire home building side. Prior to that merger, Helping a Hero was a fundraising organization for recreation for the men and women that were trapped at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. I mean, these guys and gals, when they would get hurt, they would be sent, typically your burn victims and your amputees get sent to BAMC. The guys that have traumatic brain injury, they typically go to Walter Reed. And then the guys that are blinded, they go to another facility over in Pensacola, Florida, and I can't remember the name of that hospital. That's where the blind guys go for their specific help. But the vast majority of guys that we deal with are the guys that are at Brooke Army Medical Center. So anyway, so we provided some entertainment and recreation for about 10 to 15 guys a year. Myself and another gentleman, we would get a van donated by Cree Ford over here, and we would drive up to San Antonio, up to Brooke Army Medical Center, and pick up the guys and bring them down here and let them get drunk and do all kind of fun stuff and just get them out of that hospital for about 3 days. And it made a big difference to them. At any rate, in 08, we merged with this group from the Rotary Club of Houston, and our mission changed, significantly changed. And now we provide very specially adapted housing. We facilitate the building of these homes. We don't actually go out and drive screws and pound nails. We hire contractors that know how to build these homes so that when they're finished, these homes qualify for special grants that these men and women can receive once their home has been approved by the VA. So the VA comes out during the building process and says, okay, that's the right kind of concrete, that's the right kind of boards, that's the right kind of nails, that's the right kind of glass, yada, yada, yada. So, and once that's finished, these guys and gals, they can qualify for grants. It's upwards of $80,000 at this point. So it is significant, very significant. So that's why we get out of the way. We kind of stay away from any of that construction side. All we do is we try to bring, here's our model in a nutshell. When somebody fills out an application and sends it in to us and that individual is approved, we find out from them, where do you want to live? I want to live on the northwest side of Indianapolis. Okay, good. We will start to look for developers that are building on the northwest side of Indianapolis. Once we find a developer, we will then find out what builders are building in that development. Okay? So then we will contact both the developer and the builder and say, we have a very special individual that wants to live in your development. Do you have a lot that nobody else has been interested in purchasing? It might be a good fit for us. Once the lot is developed, or if they don't have anything that they can basically give us, we'll say, can we buy it for, if you have it listed for $75,000, can we buy it for $25,000? Can we work together on getting a lot? So we'll work with the developer first. Then once we have a lot, then we'll work with the home builder and say, okay, we can provide some of the items because we'll reach out to other vendors in the area that supply roofing or windows or air conditioning or flooring or concrete or all this other kind of stuff. So we want to know from the different builders, okay, here's the style house we need to build. And that varies from individual to individual, and I'll talk about why in just a minute. But then we will also work with the local vendors in the area to try to secure a decent price on the air conditioning. A lot of these guys, they really can't donate the equipment but they can talk to their employees about donating the labor to install the air conditioning. Same thing with the roofing material, same thing with the concrete. Sometimes we've had people actually donate the entire concrete, which is, you know, thank God. But, you know, I mean, there are individuals that have the financial wherewithal to do that. So that's kind of our model. And then once all this has been kind of donated and put together, Helping a Hero typically will invest somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 in this house. And when this house is done, it is typically worth between $350,000 and $400,000.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, these are extremely nice homes. Now, the reason I said it depends on the individual, if we have a blind individual that has been granted a home, there are different modifications that are made so that it can be a comfortable living experience for him. If he is wheelchair, if he or she is wheelchair bound, there are different requirements there too. You know, the blind guy, he can have carpeting in the house. In fact, in some cases, it's better for him to have carpeting, the tile, the carpeting, that way he kind of knows where he is in the house. For a guy in a wheelchair, we have to have zero thresholds. We have to have either tile or this composition stuff. You know, it just makes more sense for them. For our burn victims, almost always we search out a lot where the sunrise is on the back of the house, so that the sunset is on the front of the house, so that that individual can go into his backyard and play with his kids when they get home from school. It's a big consideration for these burn guys, and we're going to see a burn guy on here in a minute, and I want to tell you a little bit more about his story. So again, those are some of the considerations we have. Again, for our burn guys, there is a big time consideration for the HVAC system. Their HVAC system is very specially modified because when these guys get blown up and burned, their first reaction is the same reaction you and I would have. Exactly. And when they do that, they suck that flame down their throat, and it burns out all these little micro hairs that are all down through here, and they don't have that natural defense system anymore when the little buggy crap that's in the air comes into our system. We've got these little hairs and things down in here that stops that stuff from really getting in and infecting your bronchial system. Well, those guys don't have it. So it's a big time consideration for these guys to have. So let me talk about, so that's kind of, if you have questions, just shout them out as I'm going along, okay?
Okay.
Let me talk about some of the guys that are up here. Some of you might know this guy.
Yeah, we do.
This gentleman here is, I'm trying to remember the correct Marine term, Lance Corporal Stephen Schultz. He lives in Brunswick, over in West Ridge. This is Army Staff Sergeant Renee Fernandez. This is Army Sergeant Kenny Adams. Renee lives up in, he lives up by Intercontinental Airport. Kenny lives out in, Kenny was actually the very first house. Kenny was number one. Wow. And he lives at Katie, and Robbie lives out in Tomball. So we can go to the next slide if you would. All right, and again, there's some clown in the picture. I don't know who he is. That is Johnny Yellick. Johnny Yellick and another one of our home recipients were both, they're Air Force combat controllers, they're called today. They used to be called Air Force commandos. These are the guys that parachute in way behind the enemy lines, and they sit on the ground and they call in the airstrikes from above, usually within, like from here to that pickup truck, away from them. You know, I mean, they're in some dangerous, real dangerous territory. So Johnny has significantly damage to both of his legs, and he has gone through, I believe, 3 or 4 different surgeries now, what they refer to as limb salvage operations, trying to save his legs. And it has been moderately successful on the right leg, but he has lost the left leg to a little knee. So Johnny is in a home up in the Fort Worth area. So he's a good kid, very bright young man. For a couple of years, he was kind of our liaison between the Helping Hero Board of Directors and our community that we were servicing. So Johnny, very, very bright young man, very good kid. All right, so this was typical of one of our groundbreaking ceremonies. When we do get the lot kind of squared away for an individual, we will then schedule the local, in that area, the local politicians and, you know, other big wigs in the area.
Right.
And they will then come out and we will have a mound of dirt thrown on the ground, and then we'll have all these real fancy brand new shovels, and we will throw dirt in the air and out the leaves. You know, but you know, so it's I think it's a lot of fun. This is Senator Rob Portman is here. Remember who the rest of the people were, and then there's that clown over there again. So yeah, good. All right, so Matt Detheridge. I know the slide says in progress. Matt moved into his house this past June. His house up in San Antonio. So that's Matt. Good young guy. He is originally from the Cincinnati area, so he became one of my favorites, of course, since I was born and raised in the Cincinnati area, and we still have a lot of good conversations about the Cincinnati area. Exactly. Next. So yeah, so we are the largest charity that builds very specially adapted homes. There are others. And there are other organizations out there that raise money to build homes for the men and women, homes for our troops, homes for our heroes. There are other organizations, but typically, almost always, they do not build a specially adapted home for that individual. They will go to Perry Homes or the Echo Builders and all these other guys around here, and give me that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, okay? And they move in, and then the guy's in a wheelchair, and he doesn't have the 0 thresholds, and he doesn't have grab bars around the toilet, and he doesn't have, there are things that these guys and gals need. And,
Yeah.
Right.
So
your organization builds it correctly the first time?
yes. I mean, and it costs these guys money to, let's say they get one of these homes, and then they end up investing to have some of these modifications made, and then they're spending all these grants that if they would have worked with us, they would be able to use that grant money against them.
Right.
I mean, and the other thing I neglected to mention, I'm going to go over right now just so there's no misunderstanding. These homes, when they get there from Helping a Hero, are not free. Each one of these individuals is expected to take out a $50,000 mortgage, minimum $50,000 mortgage, and they sign a 10-year agreement to stay in the house. Why do you make them do that? One is, does anybody here, have you ever rented a car?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, many times.
When you returned it, did you wash it?
No.
No.
Why not?
You hear about it.
You don't hear about it, right? Guess what? That's why there's a minimum of a $50,000 mortgage, because we want these guys to take care of this $350,000 to $400,000 investment that the community has invested in them. The same reason goes for the 10-year requirement that they stay in a house. Sometimes individuals take advantage of a situation. I'm sure none of us have ever encountered that before, but that guy over there, you give him a brand new $150,000 to $300,000 house, and he has no other requirements, and all of a sudden his brother's sister's cousin's uncle needs a loan. or they need some money because they decided they really want to live on a boat, they're going to take that house that they just made a big, lavish display, brought all the community together and told them how wonderful it was. They flip the house and they are out of here. How do you think all those donors feel?
Cheated, yeah.
They feel like they can take advantage of? Yeah, damn right they do. So, those are two of the big reasons that we insist, these guys, and if somebody doesn't want to do it, that's fine. You can move on to the next guy. You know, but our requirements are, you sign a 10-year agreement to stay in that house. You also sign a document that says you will take out a minimum of a $50,000 mortgage. So, moving right along. All right, Jack. Jack lives up in Minnesota for some god unknown reason. But he loves it up there. That's where he's from. Jack, his passion is to train hunting dogs.
Wow, wow.
So he goes out to his garage in his wheelchair because he is a very high, very high amputee. And he has a specially modified Segway that he climbs up in, plants his ass on it, and whichever way he moves his hips, that's the way the Segway goes. Well, someone, I don't know who, came up with a Segway with tracks on it so that in the wintertime, he can go out and continue to train his dogs in the snow.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so that is Jack's passion. Great young man. He has a wonderful, wonderful personality. I mean, shit, I've been with him a couple times at some of our events and things, you know, and he kids around all the time about being without legs. You know, he comes up to me and says, "Can you pick me up for a while?" Jack, I can pick you up once, but I can't pick you up and hold you for a little while. So, but he's a good guy, good kid. All right, Steve Lamb. Steve lost both of his legs below the knee. He's also blind in one eye. But Steve also has a passion, and he is the local high school team's conditioning coach, strength and conditioning coach. And did I mention he doesn't have any legs and he's blind in one eye? Yeah. So Steve goes and helps, totally pro bono. He just goes in and helps these kids. Very nice young man. He's up in the what's that little town just outside of Fort Hood? Not Temple, but Killeen. Thank you very much. Yeah. So Steve's house is up in Killeen. All right, Jeff Campbell. Jeff is up in the, he's outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Hollidaysville, something like that, something very close to that. Hollidaysburg. But Jeff and his wife Amy, they have 5 kids. 2 of them are very special needs children. Very special needs children. So, and then anybody that's a country and western fan would recognize John Michael Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
He has been at rodeo, I think, once or twice. Very nice young man. He lives just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. When I lived in Lexington, he was maybe 2.5 miles from my house. And he had a very nice spread, very high fence.
Such a pretty country there, Lexington.
It is, yeah, Lexington is very pretty. The one thing I can tell you about Lexington is a fairly expensive place to live.
Oh, yes.
It really is, because there's a lot of horse money there, a lot of horse money there, and stuff is not cheap in Lexington, Kentucky. It's beautiful, but it ain't cheap worth it.
No, I know.
All right, Blaine Scott, Master Sergeant Blaine Scott, yes, Master Sergeant Blaine Scott. Blaine was involved in that situation. His vehicle was blown up. He has had numerous surgeries for his burns. His home was built in the New Braunfels area. He has been there for about 3 years now, I guess. And when the home was being built, he and his wife Lily decided to move to an apartment fairly close to where the new home was going to be constructed and where they'd be moving in. And their children started into the school district close to that apartment complex.
Sad, that's sad.
Blaine's daughter was about 14 at the time, and she had numerous posts on her Facebook page of her and her daddy going out hunting. When she started to the new school, there were several other children there, that teenagers, that gave her an incredibly hard time about the fact that she enjoyed going out hunting.
That's terrible.
In Texas?
In Texas.
Why?
To the point that this young girl came home on August 31st and hung herself in her bed.
Oh my God.
God.
That's horrible.
And for everything else that they had been through, Isabella, 14 years old, decided to take her own life because of the bullshit that was done to her at her high school. So they've had their share of pain and misery, I'm sure, in their life.
Oh.
Blaine's house was built so that the sun is cast into his backyard, so that he and his son, Blaine Jr., can go out the backyard and enjoy themselves in the afternoons. Here is Matt Dethridge, the gentleman we talked about earlier. Matt was there for his home dedication. This is another one of our guys, J.P. Lane. J.P. Lane is also a WMPT below the knees, and his shirt that he wears almost all the time says, "Good luck, Taliban, you didn't get me this time." He's got a great sense of humor, J.P. Lane. And this guy, I don't know if you recognize him. If you've watched any of the Donald Trump events, you might recognize Mr. Lee Greenwood,
Oh, okay.
who was here also singing his song. So, that's Lee. So, Lee is the national ambassador for Helping a Hero. He comes to all of our home dedication ceremonies. He comes to every one of our fundraising events. And Lee is a very, very interesting man to spend time with. All right, as you can see, here's Lee Greenwood. But this gentleman, seated in the chair, that is Sergeant Daniel Cowart. Sergeant Daniel Cowart, his home was right over here in Santa Fe, Texas. Wow, right over there. And in May of 2017, he did his home dedication. We did have a fly over from the Lone Star Flight Museum folks came over, and it was kind of fun. I don't know if anybody in this room was here that day, but we kept waiting. We tried to time Lee singing the song to when they were going to get there. Well, Lee got to the final verse, and there was nobody up there. So he said, well, we're just going to keep going. So he just kept singing, the last maybe 2 verses of the song, and everybody's kind of going along with it. Finally, there they are. Yeah. You can always see on Lee's face, he's saying, "Oh, thank God." The other fun thing that day was some of you have been here in the Dream Sisters performing. Well, we didn't have a true sound guy that day to be prepared for Lee. The guy that we had hired wasn't able to make it. He told us the day before. So I called Mr. Andy Upchurch and said, "You know how to do this stuff, right?" He said, "Well, I know how to do it, but who am I doing this for?" I said, "For Lee Greenwood." He said, "Oh, come on." He said, "This guy." He said, "This is a mega star." He said, "If I screw this up, nobody's ever going to forgive me." I said, "Andy, don't worry. He's going to be cool with it. Don't worry about it." He was nervous as a cat on a hot tin. He was. He was like, "Oh my God." So yeah. So, you want to hit the next one, Jeff? There we go. So, the next time I saw Mr. Cowart was a year ago, March, maybe? Yeah, I think so. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Wow. And the reason Mr. Cowart, or Sergeant Cowart, was awarded this Distinguished Service Cross. The day that he was injured, he and his lieutenant and another individual, I don't remember his rank, maybe, let's just say a private. They were out on their watch, guarding the perimeter of their FOB, forward operating base, and a car came driving up very quickly toward them, and they ordered the car to stop, and the car didn't stop. So they laid down some gunfire in front of the car, and then it stopped, and the two individuals jumped out of the car and ran toward these three individuals. The lieutenant and the other individual were killed by the suicide bomber on that side of the car. Coward was able to tackle his guy and put him to the ground, and when the individual set off his suicide bomb, it took Daniel Coward's right leg with that bomb. But then Mr. Sergeant Coward was able to subdue the attack. So that was Daniel Coward's reason for receiving the Distinguished Service Cross, which in the Army's hierarchy of medals, the only one you can get above that would be the Congressional Medal of Honor. Yeah, we can kind of run through these kind of quick, Jeff. Again, these are some of the modifications. So those are some of the folks that we've been able to help. And I tried to modify it a little bit to try to keep most of the people in Texas, but to give you some idea of the scope of our charity. So when we do build them, we do the showers. Here we have a roll-in shower for the amputees with all the grab bars. The toilet, again, all the grab bars around. The roll-under areas for the sinks and the vanities in the bathrooms. Again, for the wheelchair guys, so that they don't have to try to stand up to put things in the microwave or in the oven and take stuff out and trying to stand up. Everything is lowered for them. When you have the island, we do the roll under availability. The other thing that I want to mention real quick is a lot of times in the vast majority of our wounded people that we deal with are men. And a lot of times before they leave, they're about the size of John, big, hulking, good-looking young men. They get blown up, and before they leave, their little girlfriend, who's usually about the size of Devin, they decide they want to get married. So they get married, he goes off to war, and the next time she sees him, he's blind in one eye, missing a leg, hand is damaged, and she says, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. Bye. A lot of these guys, when they come home, by the time they finally are released from Banksy, they're alone. And now it's up to either mom, dad, or a buddy, or somebody else to try to help them out. So when we build these homes, knowing that these guys, sometimes gals, are going to be by themselves, we try to make modifications so that they can exist by themselves, that they can have a microwave and an oven and a cooktop and all this other stuff so that they can take care of themselves and have a decent life. So, the other thing that we do, and again, this isn't something that Hopi Hero came up with, but was really a VA requirement, that if an individual is wheelchair bound, there has to be a 3-foot wide sidewalk all the way around the entire house. That way, in case of a fire, he or she can have egress from the home in their wheelchair and be able to get away from that fire if they have to. Up north, as required by some of the zoning requirements or the construction code, some of our concretes that we put around the homes are also heated, so that if there's snow or ice on it, they can still get out in the wheelchairs.
Wow. That's expensive.
So you need to do that. It's just you gotta be able to provide that egress from this home. We've had, oh boy, I'm not sure how many audits at this point, but I can tell you that we are very proud of that number, and my goal when I was the executive director was to try to get that number closer to 90 cents, but we've had a minimum of 85 cents of every dollar donated goes to the program.
Absolutely, that's wonderful.
I mean, we are a very, very frugal organization. We have very little overhead. And a lot of our time and effort of the management of Helping a Hero is a donation. So that's, and how can you help?
Yes.
Every year at Christmas time, we, members of the board of directors typically, sometimes the executive director, we will go to Montgomery Medical Center with gift cards and buy some gifts also, and take these gift cards and distribute them throughout Montgomery Medical Center. Just go up and just give the guy, wish him a Merry Christmas. And I gotta tell you, it is a very difficult, moving experience to go to Montgomery Medical Center on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, because sometimes these individuals have no one else that comes to see them. No one. A lot of times, guys and gals join the Army to get away from mom and dad, get away from an abusive situation. And when they're in that hospital, there's nobody, no one comes to see them. Nobody comes to see them on Thanksgiving. Nobody comes to see them on Christmas. So, it can be a very moving, very difficult moving experience to go up there on Christmas Day. I'm telling you, I've done it 3 times. It's not easy. So, and the other thing you can do, if you want to continue to support your organization, go to helpingahero.org. There's a great big red button up there that says donate. Click on that, and you should be able to donate.
Absolutely.
There we are.
That's wonderful.
So, questions?
I really want to talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
Small World. I did a website for them many years ago as an event website.
Wow.
And I have a very good friend who I do her website, and I do a bunch of other events for her. She's an event planner who does your annual banquet.
Oh,
Debbie Elias.
whom?
Debbie Elias.
Yes, Debbie Elias Events. Yes. Oh, yeah, I know Debbie Elias very well. That's very cool, small world. Any other questions, guys? I tried to anticipate questions
That was
and
awesome.
kind of tell you what our model is and how we're able to provide these homes for these guys and gals. So, and like almost all charities right now with this whole COVID stupidity, you can't have any kind of fundraising events. I mean, we've had a golf tournament scheduled like 3 times now, and we cancel every time.
And you cancel.
And you just, usually, typically, we would have an annual,
Christmas.
a gala, and hell, I mean, in 2008, 9, somewhere around there, G.W. Bush came and spoke. I mean, we've had some very, very terrific people come and speak at our galas, and they have been really good fundraising events for our organization. We're not gonna be able to do that now. I mean, shit, when we did the Bush thing, there were 2,200 people at the Hilton downtown, I mean, we took that they took all the panels down and everything else to get everybody in there,
Wow.
So, but, at any rate, I am fully retired from that organization now. I love to come out and preach to help you hear the gospel when I can, but I am not involved in the day-to-day operations any longer. When I retired as executive director in 2015, yeah, I intend to stay retired.
Good luck to
Can you
them.
put us in touch with the personnel?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to contact Helping a Hero, just go to helpinghero.org. It's really your best bet. But yeah, I can get you phone numbers and that kind of stuff.
A
Absolutely.
certain person.
So there you go, guys. That's Helping a Hero. So,
Very good.
any other
Very
questions?
good. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
you get
Very good.
But I can tell that the rest of the people must have known that I was presenting today. So.
No,
They missed out.
that was
Missed out.
very, very good.
They missed out big time.
So they missed out big time, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've got a copy.
All right, that's it, guys.
That was
Any
good.
announcements, anything? Referrals? Anybody have any referrals?
I had, let's see, one with Jan McGovern. We shot we got a shoot with her. One with Mike T.